Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first inaugural episode. Well, really, it's kind of the third episode if you really think about it, but I'll say this is the first reboot episode of The Goose is Loose, because you know me, I love my tall geese. Right now, if you're just listening to the audio only, I'm switching to the camera perspective. You see my fat face, and you see my little painted tall geese assemble. I tried making it over the EW colors, right, from the master grade, and I guess the real grade. So trying to do those colors instead of the normal anime colors, because I do have an anime color one, but I think I just want to make it a little bit different, right? So in our first segment for today's podcast, you'll find that I'll be talking about the meta, talking about some random tech cards that are living rent free in my head just from casual every other day occurrences, and maybe some thoughts on the other broader perspective of Gundam, right? Things that aren't necessarily related to cardboard, more like, you know, how the market and I'll just say like LGSs are sometimes screwing over the player base and ruining the game essentially. Because I really like Gundam Card Game as a game, but the other part of it outside those other factors, right, are just it kind of sucks sometimes. Depending on how your LGS is treated, right? But enough negativity for now. We're gonna talk about the meta. So for first meta breakdown, we've seen some changes over time. If you've seen my past videos, you'll notice that initially, I think when the game first came out, everybody's like Freedom Blockers is the best deck, and then Wing Zero happened to win, or well, Red Blue Cyber New Type, right? Kshatriya and being able to ping with other units, stuff like that, and that was the best deck. Now it seems like Wing Zero is the best deck. And you see here on the graphic, for those of you who are not watching again, that blue green is starting to get a little bit more resurgence and in terms of representation, right? So of course, shout out to Eggman for having all this data. This wouldn't be possible without him, and of course, thank you so much for him being able to put this information out there and running community tournaments, helping support the community at large. So for the first one, Eggman's triple win box number 2, we have 64 players, 6 rounds of Swiss, best of 1. Again, coming from Yugioh, I think that's so weird to have a best of 1. So if you draw bad, then you're kind of screwed. But it is what it is, right? I think there's enough things going on where it doesn't feel like you're screwed if you don't, like, for example, draw bad. Like, I think you still have somewhat of a chance to come back, right? Like, when I'm playing around at locals, maybe y'all can relate, but I might not have the best starting hand. Like, I'll try to mulligan for one card that I would like, and then just go from there, right? Obviously, if you have a really bad hand, then you mulligan again, and then get another really bad hand. That's just unfortunate. That stuff happens, but I think majority of the time, that's not really the case. But anyways, in terms of breakdown, like I said, Wing Zero had the most representation, followed by Blue Green, Air Federation, I assume Aggro, and then you have your Cyber New Type Ping, and then finally you have your others, including like Freedom Blockers, which is at 13 overall. So that's almost like, you know, like a quarter compared to everything else that's popular, and it's diminished in popularity, and you'll see that right later in the market watch section, right? Kind of like not financial advice, totally not financial advice, but you've noticed that obviously the more meta and popular a deck is, the cards will probably be more expensive. But that's just overall on representation and what you'll play in Swiss. The more important thing is top 8. So winning deck list is Xeon Aggro, which is playing blue-green. Second place is Earth Federation Aggro. And then finally Cyber New Type Ping. So you'll see like Wing Zero, Unicorn blockers, and even Freedom blockers, none of them really perform excellently in this particular tournament. So we'll talk about the winning deck list at least. So winning deck list, for those of y'all who are listening, so we're playing 4 DOP, 4 Zaku Uno, 4 GM, 4 gun tanks, 4 Zaku Dos, 4 Zaku Dos, the one that gets 2 AP, all of the Char Zakus, G Fighter at 1 copy, and then finally gun cannon as the other units. So we're not playing RXs, we're not playing Grandpas, not playing Chars Gelgoog. Basically anything that is a level 3 or lower, that's what we're playing. And finally for pilots, they only have Char and Amuro maxed out. Corsica Base is another card I believe is gaining in extreme popularity because it's able to give you like a free Tolkis token, and if you already have one engraved, then you get 2 Leo tokens instead. So remember when you're playing aggro, especially something like this, which is like so low in terms of level requirement and cost, then you're trying to like swarm the field so that even if your opponent blocks, then you're not going to have enough blockers anyway, so it doesn't matter, right? And one more card that I think is gaining another card that's gaining an extreme popularity, of course, is Siege Ploy. Because if you don't know what the effect does, is that it's able to choose one enemy unit with 5 or less HP and rest it. So it's able to be bursted and is able to be used during the action step. Essentially, it's another copy of Amuro, right? So I think in my build as well, I'll probably be playing this to play more aggressively in terms of just like a tech card to counter blockers and also countering like annoying cards overall. So yeah, that's the winning deck list. Shout out to them. Shout out to Jerome Villonis, if I'm saying that correctly. They want first place. One more thing I like to mention is DOP. I just hate DOP so much. I understand why they're playing it. I mean, it's a 1-drop. You get to kind of search through your deck. Not really, but remember, if you're playing anything besides like an early aggro kind of deck, I think DOP is just useless. Like, you only get the value out of it if you put the card from the top to the bottom, right? If you're already going to draw it, then... or leave the card on top, you're already going to draw it, and you just kind of like... it does things. I don't know. I think I would rather play something different over just the DOP, but I understand why they do it. You know, it's a unit, is there. Obviously, it's probably better in non-Xeon kind of decks like this mix thing, but I just, I'm not a big fan of DOP, guys. You can hate me all I want, but it's just, right? Not a big fan of DOP. It's just one attack, 1 health. It's all right, I guess. So yeah, anyways, that is first place. Now we can look at the Earth Federation aggro. Oh, look at that. And very similar to the previous deck, except this time instead of playing Shard, they're playing Shang and Shenlong, being able to breach units and having some ping here and there with the Concha, right? The Anksha, and then also they're still playing Grandpa Gundam RX. Overall, I think it's also another solid choice if you don't want to go on that super early, ultra aggressive, like level 3 kind of deck. If you want to have something a little bit more long-term overall, this is what I personally would prefer, because I think the other one is maybe like too glass cannony. Because I don't know, obviously, how people play like their blocker decks, but to play a blocker deck effectively, you need to be able to trade efficiently, right? You need to go like 2 for 1 for your units, so that even though they're summoning so many units, if you're able to just make good trades with them, then you'll be fine. Because once you get to like level 4, then they're kind of screwed because they have big units, and being able to take out multiple of them depending on what you play in your tech options, like Strike Gundam, right? Like Sword Strike Gundam, that's another great card where you're able to bounce like level, choose one enemy unit with 2 or less HP, you can return it to the hand, right? So that's another great thing, especially for tokens and things that are low health, and then they have to waste resources to resummon it. I think that's also good. And of course, you still have to wait like 1 more turn to summon it. So I think if you're able to play it effectively, then you'll be doing fine. And now, like I said, in the meta, you're not seeing too many people play Kshatriya, and that's going to be related to why, you know, it's been kind of crashing down, because maybe people are realizing like, mid-range is not too good, I'm just going to play aggro. Simple, just summon units, attack, and then be done with it. So that's the one for Eggman's Triple Winner Box. I think now we're talking about Eagle Nest Weekly for that tournament. That one had 52 players, and top 8 included 2 white unicorn blockers, 2 green white wing 0, 2 Siren New type ping, 1 academy aggro, and then 1 red white justice blockers, which we don't see like ever too often. Even around my locals, I think I only saw 1 person trying to play that. So I think the first 2 lists are pretty normal. Shout out to Lucas Vaz and Karit the Wise. I believe Karit Kagart the Rise is not playing Freedom Gundam. I would assume they're not playing Freedom Gundam because it's too high of a level requirement. And if you're playing against like a aggro deck, obviously it's just going to be a card sitting in your hand. But in my opinion, the worst matchup for Freedom, at least from experience with locals and stuff, my only losses were ever to like Wing 0. Because you're both kind of like a long range, like mid-range, overtime kind of deck. But they can drop Wing 0 and just do 3 damage to all your blockers, which are presumably already been taking hits. and then you just lose your board, right? And they're able to ramp it up too, which makes it more frustrating. So it's extremely difficult to like play around it because you're on the click, you're on like a clock, you're on the clock. If you don't beat them by turn 8, or you play your resources effectively, then you're kind of screwed. So I think that's why second place, character wise, is not playing Freedom at all. But first place is playing only one copy of Freedom, which, you know, might be the way to go. If you draw it, you draw it. If not, I think in Gundam though, like a 50 card deck, like playing a 1-up seems kind of unnecessary, right? But you also have a lot of draw power anyways through like overflowing affection. I guess the bases technically are also draw power because you add a card to your hand, and then or show resolve, right? So yeah, I think freedom blockers, if you're playing that kind of variant, you just need to play Unicorn. I think without playing Unicorn, then you get screwed by Wing Zero. At least from experience, that's how I feel. But yeah, and now we'll look at the academy blockers, right? Or academy control kind of deck, the white blue. So for those of you who can't see it right now, usually this deck would be revolving around area rebuild, being able to recur commands and then getting more resources through Soleda's pair effect, right? When she attacks, you can choose one of the resources set as active, so you get those 1-drops again to be activated. But it seems the case for this particular deck list is that they're just playing early game aggro, right? Kind of similar to the one I was talking about earlier with the blue-green, where everything is under 3 level. The most here you're gonna see is like the aerial itself, like normie aerial, the one where it's able to get -2 costs, right? If there's 4 more command cards, which for value wise is pretty good because then it's only a 1-drop. You have a bunch of commands to try to support you, and you're able to like take them out and then do a lot of trades effectively. Because Dara Blade is just basically Dara Blade, excuse me, Daribald. Oh man, my dyslexia, right? It's kicking in. My Daribald. Shout out, Good Turk, right? That's a really cool hybrid. Anyways, but is able to return like a enemy unit 1 HP, which is basically very similar to the other Gundam Seed card, right? I think it's called the Perfect Strike or whatever it's called. You know what I'm talking about? Like the one that's able to bounce like level at 1 HP. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Not the Sword Strike, the other one. Perfect Strike Gundam, yeah, that one. The one with a bunch of weapons on it. That's able to bounce like 1 HP, and the Daribald is basically the same thing. Same with Michaelis. Michaelis is able to get the Boosty, so it's a 4/4 at 3. Anytime your stats are better than your level, then obviously it's probably a really good card, right? So yeah, I think this deck took a lot of people by surprise because I think right now in the meta, not many people play 2 decks, right? One number one's Academy, because I think most of the Gundam fandom who are hardcore people probably don't gravitate towards more the newer stuff and gravitates more towards like UC and Gundam Seed. And then the other one that's not super duper popular either is like the Zaf kind of deck, right? At least for now. We don't see too many people playing like red white here and there. But yeah, this is another red white Zaf blocker list. I think it's fairly standard, right? Control the game with Soleta, aerial rebuild, all that stuff. And then your Atherin with the mobile armor mode with the Aegis Gundam, being able to attack units and have reach. I think it's another solid game plan, right? They're also playing Kigali. As you don't see that too often either, but it gains blocker, so your other white units that are kind of like non-blockers, for example, like Ariel, be able to have stuff, right? Be able to block too, get value out of it. So, anyways, these are all in-person tournaments. I think, yes. I mean, all virtual tournaments. I don't think people actually sit down and play eggman events, right? Unless he has like a card shop or something I'm not aware of. But I think it's all virtually to camera. And now we'll move on to a section where Kevin likes to ramble about why he doesn't like playing virtual tournaments. Even for Yu-Gi-Oh! I just hate it so much because like people, especially from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community, are like huge real sharks, right? When I play in-person cardboard games, I'm very clear in my intentions of what I'm doing. For example, I'll say draw phase, right? Unrest. I'll say like resource, and then anytime I'm playing like some kind of card, I always say like pay 2 cost, summon whatever, right? I always make it very clear so there's no confusion between any of us. What I don't like personally, like my biggest pet peeve is when people just start playing autopilot and like do the thing and don't say anything, and they just do like one thing, like they just do the thing like attack, because I guess they assume I already know what I'm doing. But it'll be nice to get the confirmation of what they're doing, you know, because it's on you obviously to keep track of your opponent, making sure they're not trying to cheat you. Which for the most part, when I'm playing in locals, everybody's very friendly. Unlike Yu-Gi-Oh, there's gonna be partially like, you know, me rambling about how Yu-Gi-Oh in-person events are just way too, I think at this point, tryhardy. And tryhardy in like a bad way, not like an ironic way where like, oh, everybody's of course trying harding because everybody wants to win. But I think Yu-Gi-Oh just takes it way too seriously, even at the local level. Like even at regionals, I remember I was playing during the format. For those of y'all who don't know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh, but there was a format at some point where a deck could take 2 cards out of your 5-card hand, right? So one would be a random, like taking 1 card, and the other one is like the opponent chooses which card to put back into your deck, and then stuff like that. So I was playing against an opponent. It was like round 5 at that point. I was like X2, so I have to keep winning in order to even have a chance to top. But whatever, you know, if I go home early. That's my mentality. I try your best, nothing you can do about it. So anyways, what happened was I'm going second, my opponent wins the die roll, he goes first, because Yu-Gi-Oh, you always want to go first. I unfortunately don't draw any interaction to prevent that, so he gets the combo off on me. And since I already know what's going to happen, usually the order is you have to do like the random spin from your hand to the deck, and then you have your one that your opponent chooses. Usually it's like that, right? It's like during Thunder Dragon format for those of y'all who play Yu-Gi-Oh. But anyway, it's not relevant to you guys who don't know that. But anyways, the point is that the first one usually is supposed to be like a random one, and the second one is a opponent chooses. However, my opponent like either did it in a different order, or like I just like he did the thing and I just did the order incorrectly. So what happened was he was supposed to choose one of my cards to shuffle back the deck, but what ended up happening was I just randomly picked the card and just shuffle it into the deck, right? And my opponent said like, oh, I was supposed to do this and that or whatever, but I'm like, oh, okay, I can just get the card back or something like. But he's like, no, I'm just calling a judge on you so you can get like a game loss, right? So I'm sitting there kind of annoyed. I'm making my case. The judge comes and he like asks her situation. Of course, I say like, oh, I accidentally like put the card. It wasn't supposed to be random. But then he asked me like, oh, do you know the card? I'm like, yes, of course, I remember the card. So I got it back out of my deck. He shuffled the deck and he said, okay, don't do that again. Like, I don't know. It wasn't gonna matter anyways, I feel, because he was gonna put 2 cards from my hand into the deck anyways, and like it's gonna be shuffled, right? I don't know. It was just people try to roll shark you. Obviously, it's my B for not listening, but you know, I was just annoyed. At the end of the day, he was gonna get 2 cards on my hand. My hand couldn't do anything anyway, so I don't know. It was very frustrating. Seeing how Yu-Gi-Oh players take things way too seriously. For the most part, Gundam, I don't think anybody's like at that level, taking the fun out of it, if you will. But I don't know. Yu-Gi-Oh, out of all the card games I've played, it was like the least friendly, most competitive demographic. Especially since now you really think about it, like people who play Yu-Gi-Oh, especially modern, are probably like so ingrained into the game that you only play like competitive $1,000 decks, and that's why the game is like dying, because there's no real casual market there. And every time they try to appeal to the casual market, either the competitive market, which is like kind of the only people that are still playing, don't like it and so it flops, or the other thing is they just do too much like dual monsters nostalgia, where anything besides Dark Magician and Blue Eyes, there's no support for it, or no like attention towards it. I don't know how you would solve the Yu-Gi-Oh dying problem, because people say there's a lot of events like YCS's always having much more attendance, but I think that's because people just don't want to play at locals, because it's just so unappealing to play, right? Because of how tryhard people are. That's my opinion, right? That's my ramble on Yu-Gi-Oh compared to Gundam locals. But anyways, point of story, moral story, I don't like playing virtually at all. If I can avoid it, I will. I much prefer to play in person, because there's a little thing too where it's like the psychological aspect, right? For me, like maybe it's just my aura or something. When I play in person, I just happen to intimidate people into playing bad. Right? I don't know. I one time, for example, I was playing Yu-Gi-Oh. Someone literally had a mental breakdown in front of me because I was just doing this. I was like, "Your turn," and then didn't say anything. Not now. I also don't do. Here's another pet peeve of Kevin, right? I also don't do obnoxious hand shuffling. Don't worry, these are common. So I don't do any of that. I just set my cards like this, like it's goldfish, or I set my cards down onto the table and I just say go, or your move, right? I just let them do their thing. If I have any sort of interaction, I do it fast. So it's about not giving your opponent tells and things of that nature. But yeah, I just, that's the part where you play virtually. You only see the board, right? So you don't see the person's face. And I just think that's missing, especially if your opponent is not really good at hiding their tells, so you can kind of tell like, oh, they have nothing. So I could play like a little bit more aggressive. Those are things like you don't get virtually unless there's cameras, and but then you're not gonna be looking at the camera, you're looking at the field. So anyways, yeah, more story. Yu-Gi-Oh locals, people super competitive. Gundams, very fun and casual. And then Kevin just doesn't like playing virtually at all. All right. So that's it for this Rumble. Now we're gonna go over to a little thing I like to call not finance Yu-Gi-Oh Market Watch. No, I'm just kidding. It's gonna be Gundam Market Watch. This is not gonna be a recurring theme, but I think it's something worth noting for those of y'all who I see posts online where people, this is like their first ever card game, which is like, wow, that's so crazy to me. So welcome to your cardboard addiction. Welcome to your cardboard addiction. It's crazy. I did look at these prices last night, but you can see some prices have dropped significantly. Like I remember Wing Zero last night was like a $90 card, which I guess it is $90. Fake news, right? Fake news. 33 listings for 85. You don't come to shipping. So cardboard, of course, is prohibitively expensive. If you had the choice between food and rent versus a piece of cardboard that is shining, obviously choose the former. These are not appreciating assets. Over time, the majority of these things will lose value unless you pull the nuts. Like even Area Rebuild, remember at one point it was like a $2,000 card. Oh, it's worth $2,000. No, it's not. It's worth however someone's willing to pay for it. And it looks like the moment it's $525. It's gonna hold value? No, it's not. Everything's gonna drop, right? Don't believe the fake news of people trying to like speculate and play this like Pokemon stocks or whatever. But it's not. If you want appreciating asset in stocks, right? Blue chip stocks. You invest in land, and then you invest in like resources like gold, right? Those are only the three things I can guarantee, even not even as financial advice, but like life advice, right? Those are the three things that will retain value over time, not cardboard, right? Despite what people want to try and make out of it. So you can see here a lot of things have just dropped significantly. The only things maybe retaining value is like alt arts, but even then I think it'll start to drop for some of them that are not meta relevant, right? Like for example Rita, I really wanted to get one just because it's cool and like she's best girl. At one point it was like a $60 card. You can see like the giant drop for those of y'all who are just listening. So between July 23rd, which is the release of the game, all the way to like July 30th, so give or take a week, it dropped down to almost $55. I was waiting for it to go down to like 45, maybe 50. I was like, oh, I'll buy one copy just to like have it in collection. But you can see it's obviously risen up because of the popularity of Red Blue Pink. But even then, like earlier this week, I don't know if y'all seen this, but at one point it was bought out and it was at like a $99 card. You can clearly see it like a couple days later, $74. This is probably going to dip even further down to back to 70 when these prices stabilize, because like people who want to play decks, I believe at this point have probably already got their first deck, right? The one that their most favorite deck to play, and now at this point people are probably making their second or third deck, or maybe completing their collection. That's what I think. And even as a player and someone who like is a TCG player relatively for like a long time, like understanding trends, right, from Yu-Gi-Oh especially too, which is a good case study of how not to have a card game that is for collectors or players. So that's just one example. Another example I've noticed just from looking over time is that Kshatriya, remember like last week, it was like a $35 card. Now it's starting to dip down to 28. They're probably going down to 25s, but I think that little dip right here, the lowest when it was just like released in the first week when it was like a $15 card, which is when I got them because, well, number one, I knew from the beginning this is going to be an amazing card, and then also because Marita's best girl, right? So would like to have 4 copies of that. So that's what I did. Now, obviously, it's appreciated the access, but again, all these cards, we don't know how Bandai is going to reprint things. People say that the booster packs are going to be in big box stores, but I don't think that is ever the case where it significantly causes all prices to go down. Like, there'll just be more supply, but I think demand will probably be the same, right? I don't think demand's going to suddenly spike because there's more product. That's usually not how it works, right? Another card I think has appreciated an asset is obviously Char's Gelgoog, because we know that's the best Xeon card in my opinion, because you're able to recycle Char and is also future proof. So it being an alt art obviously indicates that it's a higher level of getting it, like more difficult to get it. But Char's Gelgoog, if you can somehow get this, not financial advice, if you somehow get it like 20 bucks right now, because it's not super popular, right? It's like, that's how it works for meta. The less popular a deck is, the lower the card price is going to be. Like, look at Wing Zero. Like, earlier, everybody's been playing Wing Zero. $41 card. Now, what? $25 most. 27 maybe. Alright, same thing goes for Death Scythe. Death Scythe, I believe, was like around the same price too. Like $40-ish. Now 31. Another big dip I've noticed, of course, is Freedom Gundam. Everybody said Freedom's the best deck. Freedom's the best deck. Look at this. Now it's like $23. Remember? 1 point, $40 card. Wow. Crash. So, not financial advice, but this is the time where if you want to play a certain deck and it's a popular deck, kind of like Freedom Gundam, which I think, in my opinion, is the best deck. Your only bad matchup really is Wing Zero, but then people are starting to pivot towards Unicorn mode, so you can at least bypass that like Wing Zero level 8 drop. So if you're playing less Freedom Gundams, that means the value of it's going to go lower. People are not liking playing the deck anyways, because it's a very technical deck. You have to be able to make trades and block effectively, compared to like Aggro. Aggro, you just attack. You don't have blockers anyway, so it doesn't matter, right? But in my opinion, I personally like Freedom Unicorn blockers the most. And I've played like every week at locals or locals, I try to play a different deck so I can have more information of what I personally like, because it's very different from playing, you know, the simulator or with friends. When you're playing with strangers, that's when like you don't know their tendencies and things of that nature. So I played Red Green Xeon. I did 2-1. I did alright. I think initially on the first week, people are still trying to figure out what decks are good. So, and also getting to learn the game, so that's different too. I think I caught off a lot of people surprised playing Aggro. Second week, I played Red Blue 7 new type. Did not do well with it. I lost every single round because I was playing against blockers, and then I realized, oh wait, if I don't finish them off in time, then they're just gonna have a bunch of blockers, and I have a lot of low damage things, so it doesn't matter. Could not do well with it, and you kind of see the market is shifting towards that as well. And then most recent locals, you can see my deck list for that. Freedom Gundam, right? The only loss I had was against Wing Zero, unfortunately, at the last round, because they dropped the 8 on me, and I didn't have enough aggro in the deck to push for game. So that's why I'm probably going to play more destroy modes, which I think will probably start rising, as you can see here. And a little graph for those of y'all. Went from 19, now it's down to like 18, and then you see here, lowest price is like $20 card, right? Went down to 16, 15s, and then people started to realize, oh wait, I should probably play Unicorn if I want to play Freedom Blockers, or some kind of deck like similar to that. So that's how the market is. I know cardboard is very expensive, but you got to be able to make hustle, right? You got to hustle and make trades. That's how I did. I was very fortunate to get MSRP for 2 booster boxes, so I managed to pull 2 Freedoms. I'm like, that's what I'm playing. I guess I'm playing Freedom. And I had 1 Death Scythe, 1 Wing Zero. Traded those away for the other Freedoms and cards that I needed, and that's how effectively I tried not to spend as much money on card. And then since I had booster boxes, I had bulk, right? Bulk. A lot of people needed bulk in my locals. I sold those. You know, make $5 here, $7. It all adds up, so you can afford cardboard, right? Because that's the ideal. Obviously, I will hope this game is affordable as possible for people, where financial reasons shouldn't be a barrier for you to play a game. But it is a hobby at the end of the day, right? And also, like, you know, I'm not trying to like give market manipulation kind of deals. Like, oh, everybody should go buy out this card. Like, Yugioh has that, a lot of that. I'm not gonna call out channels, but you know who they are, and they're probably not watching this anyways. But it's just, I don't know how you could do market watch if you're friends with vendors, right? Doesn't that feel like a conflict of interest? It is a conflict of interest. Like, if you say so card is like drawing a hype, by the way, look at my description down below for 5% off your next TCG player or next you know, tier 0 games like discount code. I don't know, I don't think that's very cool. You shouldn't be giving quote unquote not financial advice, but it is financial advice to people who are vulnerable, who are trying to make, like, you know, money to afford their cardboard addiction. If you have like sponsorships like that, I don't think that's cool. I don't think I will ever do that. I won't ever do that. And again, this is not financial advice. This is just me coming from a player, someone who buys cardboard and has looked at trends over time. So right now, if I were gonna play them, like play certain decks, for example, Freedom, to a certain extent, like Aerial, Rebuild, and like Academy, and even Zaft. Remember Zaft at one point had a little hype and then kind of died down. But those 3 decks, they're kind of on the down low. People right now, I don't think there's too much moving around in the market overall. People are trying to sell cards at this point. Maybe they didn't like the game, they're trying to sell cards. But everything right now is kind of like pretty low, right? People who want to buy stuff already bought stuff. People who haven't bought stuff are either not buying it or just waiting till there's more product to arrive. But yeah, I think all the train for you to make fat stacks of money is all gone at this point. I don't think anything is gonna pop out and just start getting bought out and become like, you know, go from like a $5 card to a $15 card, something like that. I don't think anything like that's gonna happen. I think all prices more or less are stabilized. So if you gotta buy something, I think now is an okay time. Yeah, like if I was gonna buy somethings, maybe Aero Rebuilds. I've seen those. You see here, like this seems like an underrated card where it's able to add back a command card. I think that's underrated. And then you have your alt arts, which I think will probably appreciate value over time, unless it's like a not popular one or a not good one. Yeah, that's really all I have to say. I just want to get a Merida at some affordable price, right? Somebody please, hope this goes down or something like that. Anyways, that's really all I got. Thank you for watching Yu-Gi-Oh! Market Watch with Kevin. Use this TCG player link down below. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, Freedom Blockers on the low. Gundam Wing Zero is kind of on the rise. It's stabilized, and then so forth. Alright, thanks for watching. See you guys around. Bye-bye.